Okay, this is a very short second video, and this one is going to be the roles of the president. This is really discussing sort of the different positions that the president has to play in American society. All right, the first one is that the president serves as the head of state. This means that they are symbolically the face of the nation to the world. Right? And usually for head of state, it's mostly ceremonial actions, so either celebration or memorials that take place. So I'll give you an example. In the United Kingdom, the head of state is the Queen. So if you're having a big event like a war memorial or something like this, somebody really famous dies or important to the country, the Queen will go out and give a brief speech. In the United States, that position falls to the president. So there is an overlapping of government lead and sort of symbolic lead with the president. And therefore, it is right to say in many ways that the president really is a representation of the country at any given time. The second role of a president is the role of chief executive. And this means that the person ultimately responsible for making sure that all laws are being carried out. So we think often these days of chief executive officer, a CEO, as somebody who's the head of a business, and then ultimately the person who's accountable for the business being run. So it's very similar with the idea, but with the government being viewed as the business. So ultimately the final accountability falls with the president, and they hold the responsibility for finding the right people to do the different jobs to make sure all the laws are being carried out. A third power is, a third role, is that of chief diplomat. So a diplomat refers to a person who is responsible for conducting diplomacy or good relations between countries. So the president, who, as we saw in the powers video, has a lot of powers in the foreign policy realm, is expected to maintain good relations with the allies, meant to stand up to hostile nations, and so on and so forth. This can be through alliances, peace agreements, trade agreements, etc. Here we see a very famous example of a president playing a role as a chief diplomat, and this is from the Camp David Accords of the early 1980s. And this is an agreement that was met between Israel and Egypt and was brokered by the United States, here President Jimmy Carter, in order to bring peace between those two countries that had been on and off warring for many years at that point. Bonus prize, you can name the other two people in the picture. It's, of course, the Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, and then the Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin. Commander-in-Chief. So another role for the president is to be the leader of the armed force, and this is a very practical role. So they are the one who says you can move these forces here and those forces there. Most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, this is just done under advisement from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who are the heads of each respective branch of the military. But the president ultimately, once again, has the final say over this and can get more hands-on if there's a major war or something going on. They can change the strategy as well that the chiefs follow, and they can replace those chiefs. Another position is as the head of their political party. So when we dealt with political parties back in the fall, we said that technically the head of the party is the national chairperson. However, their main actions as the national chairperson is to raise money and distribute it to appropriate election campaigns around the country for House or for Senate or for state governor and so on and so forth. Now, the president, by being the most famous and the most media visible member of the party, becomes the de facto head of the party. They're the ones who are actually in charge. So if we look at it currently, we would say that Joe Biden is the head of the Democratic Party, and the Democrats will generally do what Biden tells them to do. However, for the Republicans, there's no real head of the party at this point. Donald Trump maybe is still the head of the party, although he's lost a lot of his power by virtue of having lost the position of president. Okay? So what they do as head of the party, often they'll use their own popularity and or bully pulpit to go out and help other people down ticket to get elected. So we can see this through media appearances and things like that, personal appearances in the districts of people trying to get elected. And our final role is as leader of the economy. So this one is probably...
Mr. W, I'm going to head out, all right?
My apologies for that interruption. So the final role, leader of the economy, is probably the role that the president in reality has the least responsibility, and yet is also the one that ultimately is the largest indicator of whether there'll be a popular president or not. So Americans think the president controls the economy.
Mr. W, where do we submit when we're done?
All right, this is why you shouldn't record a video during a class. But anyway, I was getting back to it. The leader of the economy, Americans think the president is in control of the economy, and yet in reality, the economy has a life of its own for the most part, and if there's any branch that can actually impact the economy, it is the legislative branch through taxes and or through spending programs. Yet, the president is seen as the leader, so most of the time you'll see them there really as a cheerleader trying to drive economic growth. And if the economy does poorly, then the people will turn on them and they will have very low approval ratings. Anyway, those are the roles of the president.